Cape Cod Broadcasting weaves the listening environments of 99.9 WQRC, Ocean 104.7, WFCC Classical 107.5, Cape Country 104, and CapeCon.com's website experience to reflect the lifestyles of the people who live, work, and play on Cape Cod. We hope that you enjoy this podcast.
Good morning. I'm Rob Woodard. This is Sunday Journal. Joining me today is the curator at the Cape Cod Museum of Art, Sean Dahlstrom, and my other guest today is Lauren Wolk, who is a Centerville artist whose work is in an exhibit going on at the museum presently. Good morning, ladies. Welcome. Thanks for being here today.
Morning, Rob.
Thanks, Bob.
So, Sean, let's start with you. Can you tell me about the exhibit, what its theme is, and what makes it special?
This exhibition is meant to celebrate Women's History Month. What makes it special is that we have taken basically a snapshot of some of the finest artwork on the Cape from Provincetown to Falmouth. The ages of our artists are 22 through 82. So we have early, mid, late career artists. We have all type of media. We have painting, printmaking, sculpture. We have fiber.
Class.
Music, right?
Assemblage.
There we go, assemblage. That's what I was looking for,
glass,
Lauren.
yes.
And glass.
But that's great. Now, how many artists are in there in its entirety? How many?
There are 7 groups of 7, and they each chose their own focus. What makes the exhibition really unusual is the mass collaboration, because generally one does not have this many artists collaborate. And as you know, artists like to work in their studios.
Sure.
But they all came together to discuss their topic, went back to their studios, and came back and discussed it some more.
And why 7? Why the exhibit 7? What is the significance there?
Well, it was just a gut feeling. I know it sounds funny, but it was just a gut feeling that there was something very magical about the number 7.
Right. And so of the 49 artists, did you have, I would imagine you had more applicants than the 49. How did that process?
How it happened is actually I already had 35 artists in mind and started looking at additional artists because we needed to fill out the numbers, and as I knew, I'm a painter. I knew many painters, printmakers, 2D artists, but I didn't know the 3D artists. So I had to go and find additional people in glass and in sculpture.
And so how were the artists actually chosen? I know you said you had some in mind, but if you had more than 49, I imagine you had more than 49? Okay, so it worked out beautifully, 7 times 7. Oh, well done. And as you said, they're from all over the Cape. Are there some from... Is there a heavier population, let's say, from like the Upper Cape or the Mid Cape, or is it pretty well spread out?
It's pretty well spread out. That was my goal, as I said, to emphasize the depth and the strength of the artists on the Cape. Mm-hmm. And celebrate Women's History Month at the same time.
That's what I was going to get to. So it's all the artists are women.
They are.
Okay. And what sort of celebration do you have in mind? Just to acknowledge the work of women artists?
To point out the strength of the arts on the Cape. And yes, and since it is Women's History Month, not only did we show these artists, but we added many other arts. We've had poetry, we've had music, we've had a play, and then we will have a dance group coming in so that all of the arts are emphasized.
Okay. And Lauren, why did you want to take part in this exhibit?
Artists are hogs for the limelight.
So are radio people.
No, we're not really hogs. But, you make art to share it with the world. So when I was invited to be in this show, I was thrilled. At the time, I wasn't really sure what the theme would be. That was sort of an evolution. And I just figured any show that involves that many women from across the Cape and all those different media, all those different locations and ages and all, is going to be a vibrant, spectacularly diverse group that I would love to be a part of. So, of course, I said yes when invited to be in it. And then the fun began.
When you say the fun began, what does that mean?
Well, you've heard of herding cats. Well, I watched
Yes.
Sean herd 49 artists, and it was a kind of an interesting process. And then within my group of 7, it was a very interesting process and a wonderful one. We sat down to figure out what our theme would be. We chose the 7 elements, and of those elements, wood, electricity, earth, fire, water, air. What am I missing? Another one that's somewhere in there. And I ended up with wood, which was fine because I work a lot in wood. and then watching the different artists in my group interpret the idea of elemental things and how that all got incorporated into their work was fascinating. And it was fascinating to watch my own self interpret this. And so any kind of experience where I'm pushed beyond out of my comfort zone and forced to try new things is a good thing for me.
And tell me about some of the 7 items in your particular group's exhibit.
Well, Sis Rossi did a gorgeous print, and Jen Selman,
Colin Selman, sorry, I always forget the third part, did a gorgeous oil painting. And then Christy Andresen did a piece of glass art with poetry etched onto it, which was spectacular, and then led the poet to be in the reading that was scheduled for midway through the show. And let's see, Lois Grebe did a piece of enamel work. She had electricity, and it worked out perfectly. Mine, as I said, was wood. Who had earth? Carol Ann Danner had air. And in any event,
right.
we all took one of the elements, and we didn't talk about what we were doing ahead of time beyond that. We didn't talk about palette. We didn't talk about any sort of cohesion in the images we were creating. But when we brought them all together, there was cohesion, amazingly. It was almost like we were channeling each other as we worked.
And how is it displayed? What sort of dimensions are we talking about? Was there a limit on dimensions, or Sean, you want to go to that?
Actually, I'd like to address that because it's a very unusual exhibition in that we're not hung horizontally. We've used all the wall in the museum up and down.
That's what I thought, because so many different media. There's got to be sculptures, I would imagine.
And also, one group chose to make, the group called 7 Generations, all chose to make totems, and some were oil painters, some were fiber people, so that made it fascinating. So what it is, it's like going to a city and visiting 7 small neighborhoods, each with their own flavor. What Lauren was starting to say, too, is that when they came together, the colors, they had a group mind because there was this sense of color and movement. And that happened to several of the groups where, though they were working alone, when they came together, it was as if there was a group mind.
Yeah, it's truly amazing. When you walk through that exhibit, it's like walking through a wonderland. I like the idea of neighborhoods. The 7 groups each hang together really well, and then all of them, all the 49 pieces, also hang together beautifully.
Right.
It's really a very surprising exhibit.
And you were saying everyone sort of got their assignments. Okay, this person's going to work in enamel.
Yep.
This person's going to work in glass.
Well, actually, these artists already do. Sean picked them beautifully. So all these various media were in the groups, but it was the elements with which we were working in our case. So one had electricity, one had air, one had water. Sue Pello, she was the fiber artist in our group, and so it was a common theme, different media, different approaches, different ideas, different techniques, but somehow it all worked together.
And you come and you get your original sort of, you collaborate with regard to what you're going to have as an overall theme, and then everyone goes their own separate ways.
Exactly.
And then you bring it all back. So you don't get to peek at anyone else's during the process.
We had a little peek after it was too late to change anything anyway. We were all well into the process when we started to share our work, and it was exciting, a little mystifying because we weren't sure how it would totally end up. But when we all brought our finished work together, it was a real aha moment, and we were very pleased.
I can imagine. So, Sean, tell me a little bit more about the exhibit. When did it begin, and how long will it be going on?
We opened on Valentine's Day. Now, originally it was supposed to have only been for Women's History Month, but Michael Giaquinto, the museum curator, I'm a guest curator.
Okay.
And Michael Giaquinto, the museum curator, and at that time Cindy Nickerson were so excited. They said, we have to extend this to 7 weeks. So that's why we're 7 weeks. There have been some things. The exhibition has been hung differently. We only have names and titles at the places, and so people are encouraged to go elsewhere to read more about the artist. Each of the artists wrote a 50-word wall text. So what we do is we have the artists speaking from their heart about what they were creating, maybe about their interaction with the other artists. But it's not where I, as curator, step in and interpret. You have the artist's voice, not only looking at the artist, but reading what the artist has to say.
And the Cape arts community, as large as it is, it's also a very small community. Were a lot of the artists familiar? Lauren, did you know a lot of the other people with whom you were working?
Well, that was one of the cool things about being in this show. I knew quite a few of them, but I didn't know them all. And I still don't. We're going to have a potluck at the end where I hope to meet some of, really, I've met them, but really get to know some of the artists who are less familiar to me. It's a really cool group.
And Sean, tell me about the what's coming up. I know that the exhibit runs another.
We will. Our last day is March 30th, and we are celebrating one more event, and that will be dance on Saturday, March 29th from 3 to 5. We have belly dancing and African dancing and drumming. So we are leaving the museum singing and with much energy.
So is this just a spectator thing, or is it actual people can come and participate? Or
this is a spectator thing, although I think they do pull people up from the audience if they want to participate. I will tell you one other thing. The docents have been incredible. They have been so excited about talking about the work. We've had tremendous response from viewers.
And Lauren, tell me a little bit more about your piece. You said that you worked with wood. Can you describe your piece?
Well, it really surprised me because I thought it would be all wood with no paint and not a lot of embellishment. Just let the wood speak for itself, because that was kind of the idea. But we were given the go-ahead to incorporate elements from the other 6 elements in our work, as long as one was dominant. So I sort of just let the piece take over, and it decided it wanted some paint and some feathers and some metal and some other. It was mostly wood, but it's a giant round. It was a tabletop, which I had to cut down a bit. And so it's really a portrait of Mother Earth in a lot of ways, body and soul, the two sides of Mother Earth.
And how is it displayed?
It's on the wall.
Okay.
Don't know what I'll do with it afterwards, but it's I miss her, actually. I had her in my home for a few months before the show, and your art becomes kind of like your kids.
Sure.
You have to send them out into the world, but you still miss them.
So maybe you'll take her home after the whole show.
Yeah. I'd have to build an extension on the house for that one. But one thing I wanted to say that Sean was starting to get at about the reaction to this show. It's created such a buzz, and the media, you included, were so receptive to the whole idea and helped spread the word that at the opening reception there were 525 people.
Is that right?
Which broke records at the museum, and they couldn't let them all in at once, of course. So there was a line long out the door. People waited in the cold for half an hour to come in, and I think this is a unique idea to have this many people covering such a spectrum of all kinds of things that the curiosity level was very high and still is. So if you haven't seen it, March 30th is your last chance.
Now, Sean, if someone cannot physically get to the Cape, we have listeners all over the place. Is there a way, can they see some of the exhibit online? Or
Yes, actually we have allabout7.com is a website that we have. So they can also write to the museum. The museum does have some of the information on their website, which is CapeCodMuseumOfArt.org. So some of the information is there. There's also a catalog if people are interested. It's $15. It has all of the work. It's extremely high quality. It also has the artist's writings. The proceeds from this go to the museum, WeCan, Independence House, and an art student scholarship.
And if someone does want to come and view the exhibit, how would they go about it? Are there tickets available in advance, or do you just come to the museum?
For the exhibition, what they would do is it's just the daily price of the museum, which is $9. The event, the Saturday dance event, is $20 for non-members and $16 for members.
Okay. And Lauren, when you said that you started out with just a piece of wood and you thought that's what it was going to wind up, what sort of inspiration did you use to continue to use different materials in constructing your thing?
Well, my art typically includes anything in my basement that decides it wants to be involved. And you should see my basement. It's a collection of very odd things, including like smashed bottle caps from the street and when a heat shield falls off a truck, I jump out of my car and grab it. So I never know what's going to find its way into a piece of art until I begin, and then I just go down the basement in my pajamas and I let myself go. And I truly believe that if you're open to possibility, the art will tell you what it wants. So
Right.
This was a real surprise to me. I'd never made anything quite like it, but the inspiration was different than my usual inspiration. It came from more outside sources than inner for a change. And it's not the first time I've been in a show like that, but every single time I am, it inspires something that is very surprising and lots of fun, actually. It's a good thing to do, stretch yourself.
How long have you been working as an artist?
Well, that's a good question. I'm a Johnny-come-lately. I've been making art of one sort or another for probably 25 years, but only, if you can call it seriously, for probably the last 8 or so. Mm-hmm. But, I think I've been storing it up my whole life, and it's busting out all over. So, but mostly I'm a writer. I'm a writer and a poet, so I've been making art my whole life. Visual art, more recent.
Right. And Sean, let's talk once again. We only have a couple minutes left, and I want to get some final thoughts from you ladies. But tell me again, Sean, about the exhibition, the hours, and how much longer it's going to be running.
The last day is March 30th. Museum hours are 10 to 5, Tuesday through Sunday. It's closed on Mondays. I will add one more thing to what Lauren said, is many of these artists totally went beyond their normal work. They really explored. It's very, very exciting. So those are the hours. It's $9 fee to enter, and more for the special event.
Okay. Lauren, you want to talk briefly about your experience in participating in this thing?
I would urge anybody who's out there as an artist working in isolation, which is kind of like part of the deal, to embrace any opportunity they have to get involved in something like this. It teaches you things about yourself. You think you know yourself. I'm 54, and I keep discovering things that I didn't know were lurking in my bones. This is a really good example of that. Any artist who has the chance to get out there and join such a community, leap at the chance.
Great. And Sean, Lauren's words, your experience in herding the cats here, what?
Actually, the cats have been thrilled,
Excellent.
By the results, and amazed at when they all came together and came to the opening. It was revealing even to them.
Great. Well, that's all the time we have today, ladies. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I've been talking with guest curator at the Cape Museum of Art, Sean Dahlstrom, along with artist Lauren Wolk. We've been discussing an exhibition going on at the museum at this point, focusing on Women's History Month. I'm Rob Woodard. This is Sunday Journal.
This podcast is a presentation of Cape Cod Broadcasting, which is solely responsible for its content. Thank you for listening. For more information, please visit us at capecodbroadcasting.com.